Hello everyone, and welcome to the instructional video on how to use LinguaSys. That's our attendance and grade record system. I'm going to show you exactly how to enter attendance and grades, and also talk a little bit about troubleshooting with the program and a few reminders about attendance policies. So let's get started with those. The first thing I'd like you to keep in mind is that all attendance for all of your classes needs to be entered weekly. It needs to be entered by Monday at the latest, and that's including attendance all the way back to the previous Saturday. So any attendance from the week, from the Monday before all the way up to the Saturday, needs to be entered up into the following Monday. Okay. Second of all, your quizzes, your assignments, and your tests, they need to be graded physically by you within a week of their due date. So if you have a test on Tuesday the 14th, it needs to be graded before the 21st or by the 21st, and then you're going to enter that into the system by the following Monday at the latest. Okay, so be sure that that is all updated again by Monday. Another thing to keep in mind, it's very important that when a class reaches the end of a part, so if they reach the end of part 1 of a particular book or the end of part 2 of a particular book, all the grades for all assignments, quizzes, and tests need to be entered within 72 hours of completing that book or completing that part. Make sure that's all updated, because we need to know if any of the students have not passed before they continue with the rest of the class or not. Also, it's strongly recommended that you keep a copy of all your attendance and grades on paper, just to make sure if there's anything wrong with the system that you can still keep on top of that, or if there's ever an issue that we need to go back and check records, you'll have that on paper. There are templates on the server, which I recommend that you use, though you can keep these records any way that you choose. Okay, so we're going to open LinguaSys now. On the desktop, look for this icon. The name of the program is LinguaSys Teacher 2015. Though it might have a slightly different name on some of the desktops, it should always include the word LinguaSys. So we'll open up that. This is the first window you'll see. In this first field, you're going to put your username, which is your first initial and your last name. In the second window, in the second field, put your password, which by default is P12345. And you can change your password if you want. That's a completely optional choice if you want to do that. If for some reason this login is not working, please contact the Student Services Coordinator, the Academic Development Coordinator, or your team lead. So let's give it a try and log in. Alright, so this is the main window that we're working with now. You'll notice that I'm logged in under a different teacher's name. This is where your name will appear, but I'm going to enter attendance for Marianne right now. Before I can enter anything at all, before I can make any changes or enter any data, I need to choose a class from this field here, and then I need to choose the part that the class is in. So first let's choose a class. Note the information that I can see here. I can see here on the left my active classes with A, and any inactive classes that I've had in the past. Okay, so here at the top are the 2 active classes Marianne has. I can also see the dates and times that the classes meet. I can see the room where the classes meet and the level and book that they're using. So let's choose this intensive class here. We're going to enter attendance for it. Okay, and again, before anything happens, now I have to choose the part, and they are in part 2. So now it's going to load the information from Marianne's class. So you'll notice there are 2 windows, the top window and the bottom window here. This top one is where all the grades are kept, and the bottom one is for attendance. So we're going to enter attendance first. This is best done daily if possible, but as I said earlier, try to have it done at the latest by the following Monday. Look here on the left, you'll see that all the students in the class are listed alphabetically with their last name first. Okay. Costa Ricans generally have two last names. So this first student is Blanco Morales. Those are the two last names. Generally, this third name that appears is their first name. So her name is Andrea, her second name Celeste, and these are her two last names. So alphabetically by her last names, we see their last names. We see them here. If I scroll down a little bit, you'll see this one at the bottom has a different color. This student is no longer in the class. They were at one point, but now they are deactivated. I do not need to enter any attendance for this student. You'll see here, I can see the student's age. And over here, I have the attendance for the class. In the top row, I can see the unit type or the lesson type. This is very important, and I'll explain why later. On each individual day, I have two letters for each student, either their attendance, present, absent, tardy, whatever, and their homework grade. Is it complete or incomplete? I'll explain about putting those in now in a second as well. So let's enter attendance for the 9th of December. Okay, you'll see this one's blank. So the very first thing I'm going to do is go to this little calendar and select the 9th of December. And then I hit enter data. I'm going to get a window pop up here in the middle. So this window will pop up. And you'll see I have the students' names here again. The very first thing I need to do is enter the lesson type. This is very important. Okay, the student services coordinator needs this information. We need to keep this up to date. You'll notice down here Marianne has been keeping very accurate records of what the lesson was about. Okay, so if it was a unit or a conversation day and a particular unit, maybe it was an oral presentation review. Okay, so this particular day was the final exam. So I'm going to write up here exam. Okay. Down here is where I can put in if the student was present or not. I know that Andrea was present, so I can click this drop-down box, and I have four options here: if she was present, or tardy, or absent, or if her absence was justified. Now I know she was present, so I'll just click that. Now I have to enter her homework, and Marianne tells me that she did do her homework, so I'm going to give her complete. So on to Fabian. Now I could keep using this drop-down box, but in order to save time, I'm just going to hit the letter P on the keyboard, and automatically present comes up. And now I can navigate with the arrow keys. And so over here I can do the same. Fabian did his homework, so I'm just going to hit C, and complete pops up. This will save you a lot of time, especially if you're keeping a paper record. You can just go straight through these using the arrow keys and the first letter of the word. Now, please be careful. If you look on the left, there's the names, and if I scroll down, you'll see this student that we saw before was inactive is here at the bottom of the list, but the color is not different. So be careful. We don't want to enter a present for Mariella here because she's no longer in the group. And the color doesn't change, but you can see the alphabet starts over from a V to a C. So just keep in mind that if you're going through this really quickly, going P, 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 you could accidentally enter attendance for someone who's no longer in your class. So just remember that the alphabet stops here and starts again. This student is not in your class. So back up here, I'm going to enter attendance for Veronica, who was actually not in class, but she had a justified absence. So I'm just going to hit J, and that comes up. But she didn't present her homework, so that's incomplete. When a student is not in your class, they cannot show you their homework, so by default they have an incomplete until they present it to you in a future class. And I can always come back and change an I to a C, or I can change an absence to a justified absence if a student comes and shows me a justification for a class that they missed later. Now on to Melanie, who was in class but she was late, so that's a tardy. But she did do her homework. Okay, I'm going to fast forward through this as I enter all the attendance for Marianne's class. Okay, so there you have it. All the attendance is entered, and I'm going to click Save. Note that my attendance and homework grade have automatically calculated for any absences, tardies, or for any incompletes. These two columns, attendance and homework, will calculate automatically, so you don't have to worry about entering that. Please note, this is very important, if a student's attendance ever drops below 50%, they automatically fail the class. They automatically fail if those attendances are not justified. Okay? If you have a student who is dangerously close to failing, for example, Fabian, who's got a 56 here, or Melanie, who has a 68, you need to let them know. I think it's definitely important that you let them know well beforehand. So probably someone in Marlene's case, Cindy here, she's at 70. This would be a good time to remind her of this policy. And then maybe someone in Melanie's case should be reminded a second time at 68, okay? If these columns, attendance and homework, are not calculating automatically or they're not calculating correctly, please contact the Student Services Coordinator or the Academic Development Coordinator or your team lead, and we'll look into fixing that for you. Okay, let's enter some grades now. So we're back at the starting window for LinguaSys. I'm logged in under another teacher's name, Paul. We're going to enter some grades for one of Paul's students, or for one of Paul's classes. Remember that the first thing I always have to do is select the class. So this is for Paul's Saturday afternoon class here, 1 to 4. And again, nothing will happen until I select the part. Now these guys are in part 1 of their book, so I'm going to click there. So here we have our two windows again, the top one for grades and the bottom one for attendance. We are entering grades for Paul's students for the Units 3 and 4 quiz, which is the second quiz in the part. So quiz 1 is Units 1 and 2, and quiz 2 is Units 3 and 4. So all I need to do to enter a grade is to look right here for the student and under the quiz and double click on this field. I get a similar window to what I saw for the attendance. I have to select a date first. You always need to select a date for these students. Now, this was Saturday the 5th of December, so I'm going to click on that. And then I click here and just enter the grade. Now, Carlos received an 84.8%, so I just put that in here. If I want to add an additional comment, something that might be important to remember about Carlos, I can put it here. In this case, there's nothing to say, so I'm just going to hit accept. And you'll see the grade comes up here, and this average at the end is calculated automatically. I don't need to do anything for that. All I had to do is put this grade in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that for Eddie now. But now there's a certain important thing to say here for Eddie, because he was actually absent on the 5th. If you look down here, you'll see he wasn't in class. So he receives a 0 by default. When I give a student a 0, you need to put a comment down here. You need to explain why there's a 0 in this field. So I'm first going to say that Eddie was absent, and I need to say how much time he has to make up the grade. So I'm going to say will be completed in testing center December 15th. December 15th will give Eddie enough time. He has 10 days to go to the testing center by December 15th. The testing center is a service that we have for students to make up tests outside of class time so that you don't have to use class time administering the test. Ask your team lead or your mentor more about that later. But most important to remember here is that when there's a 0 in this field, you're always going to put a comment here explaining the 0, and if the student has any time at all to make up the test or the missing assignment, you need to put a date for that time. Now I'm going to hit accept, and you'll see that this is going to hurt Eddie's average a little bit here at the end. But I can always go back and change this grade by double-clicking on it when Eddie completes the grade, when he completes the quiz in the testing center. So I'm going to go ahead and finish entering quiz grades, so I'm going to fast forward through this for you guys, okay? Okay, you'll notice too that I have an inactive student here, Jose Gerardo. So nothing is going to go here for the grades. He's no longer in the class, so he did complete this first quiz with a 95, but then he left the class. So don't even worry about putting grades in here. Now that's a reason why you have blanks here for quizzes that Jose will never do. As I mentioned, for quizzes that were missed, we're always putting zeros in. Always put zeros in for missing quizzes, writing assignments, oral presentations, or exams. And then, like I said, you can go back and change those grades when the student makes them up. There is one circumstance where you will leave one of these places blank with an active student, and I'm going to show you that right now in Paul's Saturday morning class. So let's switch to Paul's Saturday morning. These guys are mostly finished part 1. So if we scroll down here, we can see the inactive students. But if you look at the very last one here, Joseph Antonio, he is active in the class, but he has 2 blank quiz grades here, quiz 1 and quiz 2. There are no zeros here because Joseph Antonio joined the class after these quizzes were complete. This is the only circumstance where you're not going to put a 0 in. You're not going to put anything in these spaces. Joseph Antonio is not responsible for these quizzes because he joined the class after the quizzes were given. This is also true for writing assignments or oral presentations. If they occur before the student joins the class, they're not responsible for that grade. So in that case, you will not enter anything in these spaces. Alright, the last thing that I'd like to show you is how to use this comments box. So we're back in Marianne's profile. We're going to go to her Tuesday-Thursday evening class. That's this first one here. And these guys are in part 1. Now, the comments box here is for special notes about the entire class. If you need to communicate important information about the class between yourself and administration. So we're just going to click here, and we see that Marianne has entered some information for the next teacher. Meaning next semester a new teacher is going to take over this class, and this is some information that Marianne wants the teacher to know for January. If you're picking up a new class, or if it's your very first day of teaching, always check this box to see if there are any special notes from the previous teacher. And when you are finishing with a class, when you're either giving up the class for this semester or you're going to leave Intercultura, we would appreciate if you would enter some comments about the class for the next teacher here as well. This is also a place where you might want to write specific comments about individual students that you want the student services coordinator to be aware of. So if you have a special comment to write about a certain justification of a student's not doing homework, or a reason why they've been absent so much, but later they proved their justification, you might want to write that specific comment up here as well. Okay, guys, well, that's it. That's everything you need to know to get started on LinguaSys. If you have any questions or any issues come up, please talk to your team lead or the academic development coordinator. Thanks for watching.